welcome to the next episode of vSphere Breakroom Chats. I'm Glenn Simon, Product Marketing Manager for vSphere. In this series, we bring VMware experts to talk about VMware's vSphere and related technologies. Today's episode, we're talking about vSphere's Supervisor Services. Our expert today is Jeremy Wolf, Product Line Manager for vSphere and leader of our Kubernetes integration. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey.
So, before we talk about what exactly are Supervisor Services, tell us about why we created Supervisor Services in the first place. So what problems are we trying to solve?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so Supervisor Services were actually introduced in the 7.x branch of vSphere, but we most recently in the U1 release expanded the offering so that you could utilize Supervisor Services in kind of in more of the customer environments. So originally it was restricted to just the NSX-based environments. Now we support it in a VDS environment as well. And so kind of the key thing there is we're trying to provide an IaaS platform. So we have the supervisor cluster is all Kubernetes, and we want to be able to provide VI admins with the ability to bring in infrastructure services and services that their application and consumer users require, because no modern application, no even traditional application can operate within kind of a vacuum of just runtime.
Okay, so you mentioned VI admins. So are they pretty much the only people who care about this, or are there maybe some other folks within IT or within the organization that might be really excited about Supervisor Services?
Yeah, so I mean, primarily this is about enabling the DevOps consumers. So a lot of these services that we see as coming onto the IaaS platform through the Supervisor Service Framework are actually going to have direct impact on the individual consumers themselves. So what's interesting about this pattern is it's the VI admin or platform operator who's going to bring the service in. They'll be the ones responsible for lifecycle managing it. They'll do all of that work through vCenter. But the end goal really is making it so that the life of the developer, the DevOps consumer, is better, and that they can they should be able to really be able to achieve their line of business requirements much faster.
Okay. So let's talk a little about what exactly are Supervisor Services. Now, you mentioned this is really kind of an extension of our Kubernetes integration. So obviously customers need that. They need to have our Kubernetes integration, which is part of vSphere Plus. It's part of vSphere Enterprise Plus as well. But so tell us, so what are exactly the Supervised Services, and how would people be able to actually access them?
Yeah, so Supervisor Services are an extension, or I should say they are taking advantage of a Kubernetes pattern called the operators pattern. And the idea is that an operator is a construct or a controller that is being created that essentially will implement the things that a human operator would do. So it is going to manage the creation of services, instances of those services. It's going to lifecycle manage them. It's going to manage the upgrade process. It's even going to, in advanced cases, be able to monitor the health of the individual instances that are running in your consumers' namespaces, for example. So it really is providing this full ecosystem that you go through the process as a VI admin of installing this service. And then once it's in place, they're able to kind of be hands off until they want to bring in a new version of that service. So that said, there are kind of 3 different types that we're currently working on. One of them is core, meaning that it's in box. It comes as part of the platform. You don't really need to do anything. Examples of that are like the VM service or the TKG service. Then we have our curated versions of Supervisor Services. These are things that you'll be able to find in a Supervisor Service catalog at vmware.com/go/supervisor-service. If you go there, you'll be able to see a list of all of the curated services. And when I say curated, what I mean is these are fully supported by VMware and our partners. So partners being groups like MinIO, Dell, and Cloudian. So in these patterns, those ones are fully supported, meaning that you can come directly to VMware support, and we are going to be able to provide support at all levels within that space. And then the third category are non-partnered independent software vendors, and Also a space that we kind of envision for the future of consumer specific services, where you're able to package your own services and bring them through this exact same framework and make them available to your consumers.
So those curated services, it looks like that link you provided, GitHub link.
Yep.
We'll add that link to the YouTube video description. So if any of you missed that, just take a look at the video description for that link. Okay, so that sounds interesting. So so let's talk about, so this is kind of a sort of a provider consumer model, right?
Yep.
So if you're a consumer, what types of things will you be able to accomplish with these supervisor services?
So today within the curated space, we are primarily focused on, or I should say not really focused on, but we've released so far are going to be 3 different S3 compatible object stores. So these are operators that get deployed as supervisor services, and then they allow a consumer to go into their supervisor namespace and request buckets. So they'd be able to self-manage that S3 experience. We have backup and recovery. We have OCI image registry. We have some L7 functionality using Contour and Envoy. We have some flings that are coming out around Argo CD, so primarily around CI/CD GitOps patterns. But if we're really looking towards the future, this is an ever-growing ecosystem. So we're constantly looking for partners. We're constantly going out and finding engineering teams who are interested in bringing their products into this space. So that catalog is going to continue to grow, and it's going to grow even faster because we now have this support in VDS where the vast majority of our customers exist.
And it sounds like that, you as a consumer, you'll be able to accomplish these things without maybe having to build or sort of write a lot of code, or is that, do I understand that correctly? Or
yeah, I mean, it's a really easy way to think about it is you're building a cloud platform with Lego pieces where you build it to meet the needs of your consumers. And those consumers using Kubernetes APIs can directly go in, they can request those custom resources, they can then manage them completely within their own supervisor namespace, which really is that primary mechanism for frictionless self-service, which is the end goal of all of this.
Interesting. So just on a personal level, Jeremy, what excites you the most about this latest advancement in your Kubernetes integration?
Yeah, so what excites me the most is that this technology, I think, is going to be critical in bringing VI admins who may not be familiar with Kubernetes and making them more familiar with these advanced patterns and making it so that they are able to achieve outcomes that they never could have imagined before. And we're going to be able to do this in a much larger subset of our customer ecosystems, because now you can do it in those VDS-based supervisors where the vast majority of these customers currently are operating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something we talk about a lot, about how you can stand up maybe a separate Kubernetes environment, or you can take advantage of what you've got, right? With vSphere, bring all the VI admins who already are familiar with vSphere, they have all developed all those skills, they can leverage those skills and then more easily sort of transition into maybe more of a Kubernetes platform operator, and also make it easier to work with the DevOps folks too.
Yep.
So where can people learn more about this?
So the first place that I would send you to is going to be the Managing Supervisor Services with vSphere with Tanzu. This is on the VMware docs page. But we are also in the process of creating some blogs that are going to be specific around this topic. But we're also going to be looking at providing some details on how to consume supervisor services that are flings. So allowing you to do some experimental work in that space and kind of provide direct feedback to us. So keep an eye out for that.
Okay, and for that as well, we will add the link to the documentation, the relevant area of the documentation, into the YouTube description as well. And with that, thanks, Jeremy. We've come to the end of this episode. Thank you, Jeremy, for joining us today. If you like this episode, everyone, please join us next time for another episode of Breakroom Chats. This is your host, Glenn Simon, signing off for now. Have a great day.